right, so next up on the block is catastrophization. Catastrophization is when the mind sees a situation that has some kind of uncertainty in it and reads the worst outcome. So think of situations like asking somebody on a date or getting a job, buying a house, or whatever situation with uncertainty and risk. The mind can't stand not knowing stuff, not knowing what's going to happen. And in the anxious, fearful mind, it will read the worst things into it. And the biggest tell for that is the persistence of the phrase, what if? What if they don't like me? What if I'm wasting my time? What if I embarrass myself? What if the person hiring me, they're having a bad day? What if I don't represent myself? What if my resume is not enough? What if? And they can multiply and create all sorts of misery. Anyone who suffers from any anxiety and depression, I think would know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that in a community context, remember these are dialogue distortions that I'm talking about here, comes up when folks like me who want more representation in the hobby articulate a criticism of an existing game. The criticism gets read as an attempt to cancel the thing. We're just articulating criticisms, but what if the publisher knows? They seem nice, they seem like they want to talk, but what if they're really just setting it up so that they could take something away? Cancel. So it gets to the point where we can't articulate a criticism without it being read as a cancellation. So that is yet another strategy to get us to shut up and play games because we can't even criticize a thing. This happened to me in a discussion, just one-on-one with somebody. Forget what the game discussion is. There's so many, but we were talking about it. I'm saying, I'm just criticizing something. And then the person responds to me after whatever back and forth. No, I'm not going to let this go. This is how it begins. It begins. So I read that phrase. I knew what I was dealing with. Nope. Again, stops discussion because that it's a scary looming thing. Now I'm in the realm of fear, and that's a discussion point that I just can't follow through on. So this point of catastrophization kind of blew up in a big way earlier in the year, and I got this person's permission to talk about it because you can never be too careful. I don't want to unseal old wounds, but this person felt it was valuable to analyze it in this way. So Elizabeth Hargrave, who is the designer of Wingspan and a bunch of other games that are really good, had a post. She wasn't the only one, but she was the most noteworthy one, where she discussed the cover of the Kickstarter campaign for Tiny Epic Dungeons. There were two women that were depicted on the cover, and they were scantily clad, and the pose was a little bit questionable. This was her post on Board Game Geek. Quote, "The way a publisher chooses to portray women in their games makes me make certain assumptions about how they think about women. The representation is not all equal. The two men are in power poses. The two women? The mage on top is in a classic tits and ass comics pose. Men are never ever posed like this because there's no real life person ever stands like this for any practical purpose. It was a pose that was created to offer up a woman's body for the male gaze." Gives an example of if comic book men were posed like that, it's pretty silly. Meanwhile, the rogue in the bottom looks like a great character with a really cool mask, but because of the lighting, her entire head and mask fade into the background. Where does the light fall? Only on her cleavage. This is a very deliberate choice by the artist that says the unique nature of the character is unimportant. Look at her chest instead. Elizabeth ends. Back to my opening statement. What is this box cover supposed to tell me about how Gameland Games thinks about women? So that is a reasoned criticism. Nothing in there says that she wants to see the project canceled. She wants to see Gameland Games burned at the stake or whatever it is, whatever people say, but that is exactly what got read into it. Read the rest of the thread. Removed comments so you can assume what kind of things were removed. As a matter of fact, you could still see Elizabeth's Twitter where she has to deny that she is calling for the cancellation of the project, but she reserves her right to criticism. Criticism is not cancellation. It is only the fear-based mindset of catastrophization that gets us there. So there's one more aspect of catastrophization I'd like to touch upon, which is the slippery slope. The idea that if we allow one change to pass through on a game, then all sorts of dominoes will fall afterwards. Quote, I guess we should burn at the stake all historical games, games about mafia, games about wars or colonies, Asian, African, or other exotic games for European cliches, and so on ad infinitum. Probably, we could play children's games, but not all of them, or abstract games like chess, unless some animal rights activist or feminist tries to criticize the horse and queen representations. All right, so right off the bat, burn at the stake, there's your flag for a catastrophization. The idea of pitchforks and torches, mob imagery. You see how I've constructed the video, how these distortions build upon and reinforce one another and land us in this dumb idea that a gamer with all this wall full of stuff would be happy to get rid of everything that's offensive. That is such garbage, born of distortion, and I can't talk to it. That's number one. Number two, this idea that there will always be someone who is offended, so let's not deal with anything. It's too hard to please everybody, so let's please no one and just play the game as it is. I will get to always and never and overgeneralizations in the next section. Here, I will say that is so unbelievably, it's bullshit. I'll just go right there. It is a bullshit line. Why? Because it fails to acknowledge, and again, this is the distortionary aspect, it sees all criticism as flat and the same and based on our reactionary feelings in the moment. Not every criticism is equal. Some criticisms have been considered over years and decades and forum threads and thinking. And, if Elizabeth Hargrave notices tits and ass and she wasn't the only one, if you have multiple people articulating something, then maybe there's a problem. Or in, a case that I talk a lot about, historical games. The Puerto Rico thing has been going on for 20 years and all these other colonization games have been going on. Maybe those criticisms are a little bit more profound than, oh, this red M&M is racist, or some other kind of flippant thing, or the queen is, sexist or whatever it is. Maybe you'll find something like that, but there are levels to this stuff. It is not just a flat screen of criticism. That is a distortion. If you want to criticize something that we're saying, by all means, but get it right. Tune down your fear. Open up your reason and look at what we're trying to say. That is what we're asking for.